You are an Ironman!
Welcome to episode 62, and today I am joined by my first international guest. I'm absolutely delighted to be welcoming Lars Ronning to the podcast. Lars, you're very welcome.
Great, it's good to be here after all our emails and messages back and forth.
You and I, Lars, have become quite good friends online. It's absolutely lovely to see you on the screen here and have this chat. Nice to hear your accent. It'll be an unfamiliar accent for many people in this area. You're a Danish athlete, and you first got in touch with me through Messenger following one of my podcasts. It was in relation to my training for Lanzarote. I had asked if anybody had any tips or any advice with regards to preparing for Lanzarote, and you very kindly got in touch. And I guess we've been communicating ever since. That's really the long and short of it, isn't it?
Yeah, we have, and also I've introduced you to a couple of my good friends that you've talked to previously. So yeah, I feel we know each other pretty well already, indirectly.
Yeah, we have indeed had the privilege of speaking to Chris Wilde and
Keith
Williams, two brilliant guests, and I'm absolutely convinced that you're going to be right up there with regards, because I have your timeline in front of me, and my God, you have done some stuff, Lars. I suppose since I have got to know you, I've been following your journey on Facebook, and I've been following you on Strava, and you're a man that doesn't lie down. You just keep going and going and going and going. That's going to become very evident as we work through your timeline. Some phenomenal feats and achievements over the years. I think we'd probably like to spend a wee bit of time getting to know you a bit better, Lars, and maybe if we start way back in the day, can we begin maybe what was teenage Lars like in Denmark?
Yeah, so I actually turned 60 this year. So I was born in 65 in Denmark, and I've always been fairly active as an individual. I wouldn't call myself an athlete, but at least something that's been active in sports. I was very inspired by my parents, who've always been very active. They've taken us skiing, hiking, cycling, swimming, running, and things like that, but just at a leisurely pace. But yeah, back then I decided to start racing road bikes as a teenager. So I raced a few years, and cycling has always been my best discipline. I've also been dabbling a little bit in running when I was young, just short distance, 5, 10, 13, 15 kilometers. I swam at the local pool together with my 3 sisters, but actually never swam open water back then. But I have been biking, I've been running, and I've been swimming as a teenager, and before I turned, became a teenager. But what happened then was that after I graduated from high school, I didn't quite know what I was going to do. What should be my calling, what sort of job would I maybe end up doing someday. So I was lucky enough that I was able to move to the US for a year, and get enrolled in a university in Washington State in Tacoma. At that university, I trained and raced with a local cross-country ski team. So I participated in races during the season, but I was also training with a downhill ski team in the US. And it was when I was in the US that I heard about Ironman for the first time. And I also heard about this gentleman, his name is Kenneth Gask. And he was actually the first Danish person who completed Ironman Hawaii. Mm-hmm. And back then it just seemed like, completely crazy that people would even consider swimming that distance, cycling the distance, and then run a marathon. But it lit a spark, I think, in me, deep down, that maybe at some point, maybe I could, get into triathlon at some point.
Uh-huh.
So I was in the US for a year, then I came back to Denmark in, I think it was 85 or 86. 86 I came back. And then I did my first Olympic distance triathlon. My swim was reasonable, my bike was good, and I absolutely hated the run. I mean, those 10K were just never ending.
Yeah.
And that's how it got started when I was in my teenage years. So I've been fortunate having a good upbringing, active parents. We've been, loving the outdoors, and I've loved the outdoors ever since.
Great stuff. Great stuff. And you have sort of maintained that enthusiasm and that love of sport and active lifestyle. Tell us how or when the actual fitness journey took you to your first full distance triathlon.
Yeah, it was actually a journey with a few ups and downs, because in my mid-20s to be turning about 35, I was working for US software companies in Europe, and I spent all of my time on airplanes, eating airline food, and got pretty unhealthy. So my weight was in excess of 90 kilos at some point, and my wife said that there was a lot to love, and I'm not sure I quite got the message, but that's what she said.
Plenty to hold on to.
And then I looked at, I saw a photo of myself on the beach, and I thought, who is that? I couldn't recognize myself. And I was about 33 or 35 years old at that time. And it was the same time that I saw some footage from Ironman Hawaii with Mark Allen and Dave Scott, the Iron War. I don't know if you remember that, but they were neck and neck until the finish line. It was just crazy and very inspiring. But anyhow, I didn't really do much until I turned 35, and I decided to myself, this has to change.
Mm-hmm.
So what I started doing was just running 3 mornings a week, 3 kilometers 3 times a week, until I could run that without sort of getting a heart attack. And then I gradually increased distance to 5K and 10K, and signed up for some races and did some of that.
That sort of continued to be the case probably for the next sort of 5 years, I guess. Checking over the timeline here.
Yes.
So coming towards your 40s, so from 40 to 50,
Yes.
Looks like you're back in the groove, I guess, for want of a better term. You're a rebirth, a reborn, and a new version of yourself.
I certainly became a reborn runner, because that's what I started focusing on. So going from 5K to 10K to half marathons, and then I thought maybe I can even run a marathon, because I'd not run a marathon at that time yet. So I signed up for marathon and did reasonably well. And then I started thinking about triathlon again. Maybe there was an opportunity for me to get back into triathlon. And at the same time, I also was able to make some changes work-wise, which means that I got a little bit more time to train and focus on myself rather than work. And what I decided to do was to try to see if I could do a half Ironman.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always tried to surround me with good people that can help me on my journey. So one of the first things I did was that I realized that I had to become a better swimmer. So I signed up for something called Total Immersion in the UK. Mm-hmm. And that was a very good sort of swimming technique that teaches you how to swim in a very relaxed and economical way. Total Immersion also put on then a training camp in Vermont in the US, because it's a US setup. So I went to the US and participated in a training camp over there. And that's where I started getting some structured training and ideas around how to approach triathlons. So I spent about a good year to get in shape for my first half Ironman. And that was helped by a US coach with the name of Mark Wilson that I'm still in contact with. So I signed up for half Ironman UK in 2004. And that really was my target. And I had an amazing experience. I did the race in 5:08, so I didn't quite crack 5 hours, but it was also a very, very hilly and quite technical bike course. And I was a little bit naive at that time because I thought, how hilly can that be? It's in the UK, so it's probably going to be pretty flat, but it wasn't flat at all. It was very challenging, but I had an amazing day.
I tell you what, if I could ever get somewhere around or close to 5 hours and 8 for a half Ironman, I would be a very happy bunny. Let me tell you, for your first half distance, that's a fantastic time, Lars. Even with the hills. What about the immersion swim training?
Yeah, total immersion.
Total immersion, yes.
Yes.
How does that differ from your sort of traditional swimming, or is there anything that you can share with us in respect of that? Any tips in terms of being able to relax yourself a wee bit more in the water?
One of the things that we focused on a lot was rotation, and really using rotation of your body to propel yourself forward. And that is something that at least helped me back then. I think I might have forgotten some of that, over the last, few years. But it did teach me to swim economically, which helped me a lot.
Over the next few years then, following your first half Ironman, you would go on then to start exploring more events and bigger distances. Talk us through some of those challenges that you faced and some of those events that you participated in, particularly your first Ironman experience, your first full Ironman experience. Intrigued to find out how that went.
Yeah, so I completed the Ironman UK event when I was 39, and after that positive experience, I decided that I want to try to see if I can do a full Ironman before I turn 40, and the race in the UK was in August, and I turned 40 on the 21st of May the next year. So I needed to find an Ironman race that would happen before May in 2005. And there were only a couple of events. One was in South Africa, another one was in Australia, and I think there was one in New Zealand. But first of all, it was too expensive. I didn't want to travel half around the world to do an Ironman. Yeah. But then I looked at the European race calendar, and I actually discovered that Ironman Lanzarote was on the 21st of May 2005, and that was on my 40th birthday. Brilliant. So I just decided this has to be the one. So that's what I decided to go for. So I did a lot of preparation for that race. Also got myself a coach that could help me there. His name was Ole Storgard, and he also came to win Norseman a few years later. And he's still a very good friend of mine. But one of the things I did leading up to Ironman Lanzarote was that I went on a long-range triathlon camp at Lanzarote, which was a couple of months before the race. And that's where I actually met Chris Wilde that you talked to a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. So I talked my whole family to travel down to Lanzarote with me because I thought this is going to be a pretty epic experience, and I would like as much of the family to be there as possible. So we were actually 16 family members traveling to Lanzarote for my first Ironman. Brilliant. Everybody wanted to go except for my dad. My dad he had of course heard about Ironman. he had also heard from a good friend that Lanzarote was the hardest race out there. And he was genuinely concerned that he would see me, fall over dead at that race. And he decided to stay back home while the rest of the family went down to Lanzarote with me. So it was quite sad and disappointing that he didn't go. But of course, I respected his concerns and his decision.
So for him, the homecoming was extra special because his son actually managed to survive it and come home. So for him, that was the prize, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this really was a fantastic experience. So first of all, this is also where I got to meet Kenneth Gask in person for the first time. Just a wonderful person. And he announced at the swim start with 800 athletes that it was my birthday, and some people even sang a happy birthday for me, before the race start. I had a good day, but I also made some mistakes, and the biggest mistake I made was that went out on the bike and I had about 20 kilometers left before the run. Mentally, I was already out running. And I just forgot to drink the last 20 kilometers. So I entered T2 dehydrated, and I compensated by drinking a lot of ice cold water very quickly. And that just made my stomach completely lock up, and I had stomach cramps for the first 35 kilometers of the marathon. But everybody was shouting, "You're looking great, you're doing great, keep going." And I just, I look like shit and I feel like shit. But I did cross the finish line in 11:57. I didn't qualify for Kona, but I had a very good Ironman debut at Lanzarote for sure.
There was something that ignited a love for Lanzarote because you went back a number of times. And one of the questions that I would like to explore with you, because I have seen some recent posts on Facebook where you put the two bike course maps side by side, and you have obviously completed Lanzarote. You've completed it five times.
5 times. Yes, that's right.
What's your views then on the modern bike course versus the old bike course? Because I was looking at some of the responses and comments under your post, and it's kind of a mixed bag. What do you think?
So a lot of changes have been made when it comes to the race at Lanzarote. First of all, with all the ones I've done, they have been centered around Club La Santa, and that has now moved to Puerto del Carmen. The other thing that's changed, which really has not got anything to do with what we're talking about here, is that back then when I did my first one, you were allowed to cross the finish line with friends and family and children and like that. So that's one of the fondest memories I've got from that event, that I was able to cross the finish line with my wife and two young sons at the time.
That's lovely,
and that's not something we can do anymore, but it will stay with me forever. It was very, very emotional. But speaking of the bike course, it used to cover the whole island, including areas down by El Golfo, Club La Santa, Famara, and it was just one big loop across the island. But now it's changed completely. There's a little bit more climbing now. It's a little bit slower, but it's also not as exciting as it was back then. And I think it changed in 2015 and 2016. Maybe it was 2018. I'm not sure.
So there's a lot more kind of out and backs and a lot more sections that you'll do more than once on the modern course.
That's right. And again, I haven't done that course yet. I've looked at it on a map and I know exactly what it's like, but it's not the way it was.
The old map certainly does look like a more adventurous route. Certainly one that takes in a lot more sites and a lot more of the coast, and a lot more of the smaller villages and that. So I take your point. I do think that having cycled in Lanzarote and explored those regions, whenever I was training for Ironman Ireland, I would have been out and around those other areas too, way up north, and
Yes.
out to El Golfo and around those places. Absolutely stunning scenery. Beautiful,
Oh,
beautiful
incredible.
island.
Incredible. I love that place. I really do.
Leading up to, I'm going to sort of fast forward and we can go back and talk about any of
Sure.
the events that happened prior. But one of the years that I'm very excited about exploring with you was 2012. I think it still falls within the bracket of your 40 to 50-year-old adventures, but 2012 was a pretty special year for you. What was going on in the run up to 2012, and what happened that made you decide that I'm going to do 5 full distance triathlons this year? I'm going to get a few halves in as well, and sure, I might as well do a couple of marathons when I'm at it. 2012 was nothing short of epic.
Yeah, no, it was pretty fantastic. First of all, between 2005 and 2011, I just went back to my old habits of not doing sports and again eating too much and traveling too much, so I got out of shape again. But in 2011, I decided I have to again make a change, and I got back into racing Ironmans. So in 2011, I did Lanzarote again, and I did also Challenge Copenhagen, which now is Ironman Copenhagen. Had a good year, but then I thought 2012, I want to make that special. So first of all, I was lucky at the time to get an entry into Norseman. So Norseman got on my 2012 calendar. I also got into Ironman Lanzarote again. But the thing was that I was concerned that I would maybe be injured during 2012, and I thought, why don't I just sign up for a number of races, knowing that I will probably have to not be able to do some of them. So I signed up for Frankfurt, Copenhagen, Challenge Henley, Norseman, Copenhagen, half South Africa, half in Aarhus in Denmark, and some marathons. And I just filled up my calendar for 2012 and just decided to take one race at a time. So I started with Lanzarote, and I actually started with South Africa. The half in South Africa went great. They closed the motorways down there, and it was an amazing bike course out and back on a motorway. Very, very fast course. Then I went on to Lanzarote. After that, it was half challenge in Aarhus in Denmark, Frankfurt, Norseman, and then Challenge Copenhagen and Challenge Henley. So a pretty epic year.
So your plan was let's sign up for everything.
So my plan was only to do a few races that year, but it actually turned out to not be injured. And I just thought, okay, let's just keep going because I'd signed up, I paid for them, so why stop?
So the body just said, let's go, let's bring it on. Brilliant.
Until the end, because the weekend after Norseman, I had Challenge Copenhagen, and I was tired after the run in Copenhagen, but I did Norseman and Copenhagen back to back.
I wanted to chat to you about the Norseman. It's a different type of triathlon. What's your memories and views and thoughts on the Norseman event?
Well, it's something that I would love to do again, without a doubt. I had been up there the year before, a couple of years before, supporting a Norwegian athlete, and that's when I decided I have to do this race. But the things I remember most vividly are probably 3 or 4 things. First of all, the swim is pretty special because you jump off from a ferry in very dark, water in the morning, and you swim back to shore. And just that swim, watching the sunrise and seeing the fjords next to you was just incredible. The water was cold, but I've never really had a problem with cold water, so I didn't mind that at all. So just an epic swim. The bike, challenging because it's very hilly. But also what you are met with at Norseman is all sorts of weather. So we had weather from freezing cold and almost snow at the passes, at the peaks, and down in the valley we had almost 25 or 30 degrees heat. So we were just met with a very wide range of temperatures. And I think the fourth thing that really stays with me is when you do the marathon, suddenly you see this mountain in front of you, which is out in the horizon, and it's very, very, high. And you know that you're supposed to finish up there, and you're just asking yourself, how the fuck am I going to do that? But you just take, it's one step in front of the other. You get to Zombie Hill, which is very steep, and then it's all about making the cutoff. So you need to be before a certain number of people in order to get onto the mountain and earn the black T-shirt, which I did.
Absolutely fantastic. I was getting goosebumps there whenever you were describing the swim. It just sounds absolutely amazing. Absolutely nuts. But absolutely amazing.
And also being able to do that event together with my family. So my family was my support crew. So my wife, my two sons who had seen me cross the finish line at Lanzarote 7 years earlier, they were my support crew, and they also ran with me all the way to the top of the mountain. So I was there able to cross the finish line with the family again. And that has been my proudest finish, I think, by far.
It sounds absolutely magical. Wonderful, wonderful achievement, especially with the family as well. It's just class. That was certainly an extreme. We'll classify that one as an extreme. And things continued to get extreme for you, Lars, moving forward from that. I don't know whether that had ignited something in you that made you want to push even further. Perhaps it did. But at 50, you weren't lying down. You were still going to power on. And things got extreme for you as well. We're talking now about entering into a world of ultra marathons and further triathlons and depletion training, all sorts of stuff. Talk me through where the journey goes next.
Yeah, I think that when I did Norseman, I got the appetite for different types of races. Something that was maybe a little bit unusual, a little bit more challenging. So I heard about this new event in Wasdale in the Lake District in the UK called Wasdale X. And at that time it was a half Ironman. And the tagline back then was deepest, steepest, hardest. So the deepest and coldest lake in the UK. The steepest because the bike course went over Hard Knot Pass and Rhinos Pass back and forth, so 33% inclines. And the run went over Scafell Pike and Scafell, which are the highest peaks in England. And I thought, this sounds epic. I need to do that.
Sounds disgusting is what it sounds.
No, totally incredible. And I've done that race, I think 6 times or 7 times. It's not being arranged anymore, but I've done that a number of times. And what I really liked about that event was that it was like a Norseman, but it was shorter and more sort of condensed into a shorter race. And I really like that. But you're right, when it comes to that also sparked my interest in trail running and ultra running. So I signed up for some trail events in the UK called Pilgrim's Challenge. And that's an event that's being put on every year in the first weekend in February, which is 106 kilometers over 2 days. So I've done that about 6 times or 7 times. And it was at one of those Pilgrim Challenge events that I happened to sleep next to somebody at this school hall where you stay the night, who had been doing MDS, so Marathon des Sables. And I didn't know what Marathon des Sables was back then, but it's an ultra in the desert, where you run 250 kilometers self-supported. So you need to carry all the food, all your clothes, your sleeping bag, your sleeping mat, everything you need for a week. The only thing they give you water, and then they move the camp overnight to a new location. So I signed up for that and did that. And it was for Marathon des Sables that I got introduced to, as you mentioned, depletion training. So again, I'm trying to surround myself with people who've got experience. So for Marathon des Sables, I found this guy. His name is Andy Mounsey, and he's the first person who did the Arc to Arc triathlon, which starts in London. You swim the channel, and then you finish at near Arc de Triomphe in Paris.
Yeah.
So and he's also done MDS. So I signed him up as a coach, and he introduced me to depletion training, which is all about teaching your body to go further and further on less and less energy. So eventually I was able to almost run a marathon on no more than a couple of bottles of water and an energy bar or a gel, because I wanted to train my body to be as efficient as possible. And I also built a heat chamber in our house, where I rented a treadmill, bought a couple of gas heaters, and then heated the room up to 42 degrees so that I could get my body ready to run with a backpack in extreme heat. So I've always tried to, when I sign up for something, to be as prepared as possible. And that helped me get through MDS very successfly.
My mind is blown. I don't even know where to come. I don't know how to respond to this. It's absolutely nuts. I suppose you started talking about doing the event in England 6 times in a row, and then signing up for the other event 6 times in a row, and now we're traipsing across the desert with backpacks. What about the depletion training, Lars? How does a man get into depletion training? What exactly is it? And is it something that you would recommend? Is it something that we should get some advice about maybe before we think about jumping into that type of thing? It's probably not for everybody.
Yeah,
it's
a good question, and I think it's something where people are in quite a bit of disagreement in terms of whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. But when you are approaching races where it's very limited what you can carry in terms of energy, then I would say depletion training is a really good thing, because you will just be able to go longer on less energy. But it flies in the face of what people are doing at Ironman these days, where they tell you to consume 90, 100, 120 grams of carbohydrates per hour. Yeah. And if I'd had to rely on that for MDS, then I would not have been able to carry all that energy and food that I would have needed. But the way to approach it is just gradually to increase distance when you run and just consume less and less energy. And along the way, you will make your body more energy efficient. I truly believe that, and it definitely worked for me.
It sounds fascinating. I'll just put a disclaimer out there. If anybody wants to look into depletion training, go and get proper advice on it.
Yes.
With regards to the Marathon des Sables, was there big, I was going to say, was there any big challenges? But bloody hell, the whole thing's a challenge. But in terms of what was the worst bit, because I can't begin to imagine running across that type of a landscape with that heat and with the wind, elevation, the conditions underfoot. How do you get rested? That's just an absolutely, it sounds brutal. It sounds like SAS training stuff. It's just nuts. Talk me through a wee bit of that to try and get a sense of what that was like.
Yeah, so So my biggest challenge was actually myself, leading up to the event, because I made one big mistake in my training. And the mistake I made was that I started training with a heavy backpack too late. So I had not taught my body to run with a heavy backpack early enough. And that means that I actually went into MDS injured. So I had a problem with my hip because of having increased weight on my backpack too late. So the week leading up to MDS, I really wasn't able to run. I could walk, but I couldn't run. So the stages at MDS are between 35 and 92 kilometers. They were that year. I was able to the first few days to run 30 out of the 35 kilometers, and then I would walk the last 5 kilometers. But the long stage is 92 kilometers, and after about 10 kilometers, the wheels just came off, and I had to realize I won't be able to run the next 82 kilometers, so I had to resort to power walking. Just accepting that the next 82 kilometers I would have to walk. But one thing I brought with me that really saved my race was that I brought poles with me. And back then, now it's about 15 years ago or something, not a lot of people use poles, but I use poles because I've also been doing cross-country skiing for many years. So being able to use pole to support my body and also propel myself forward through the sand using my poles meant that I was able to finish the race and finish it successfully. But yeah,
You
I
would
was
also
my yeah.
you would also do a lot of cross country skiing and things like that. So that really was something that stood you in good stead for having to adapt to that environment.
That's right. Yes, very much so. I started cross country skiing with my parents again when I was very young, and again I raced in the US. And I've also been doing a number of long distance cross country ski races. So I've done the Vasaloppet in Sweden, I think 5 or 6 times. That's 90 kilometers. And I've done one called Birkebeiner in Norway a couple of times, and that is 56 kilometers. So cross-country skiing has also been one of my sports for years.
I seen you actually, was it this week or possibly last week when you were out with roller skis? Because, I mean, why would you allow something like no snow to put you off skiing? Not for Lars. No, he's strap on the wheels and away you go.
That's right. When you don't have snow, you need to find other ways to train for cross-country skiing, and that is roller skiing. So I've used it for that, but I've also, if I've had a running injury or something, then I've just been resorting to roller skiing or other sports that could compensate for me not being able to run for a period of time.
That's brilliant. I can see people out now in rollerblades going around Oma at night, probably under the cover of darkness. But good shout. It's obviously worked. It's certainly worked for you anyway, Lars.
Oh, it definitely works, and it also helps with your swimming, because when you are roller skiing with poles, it strengthens your upper body. So it's a fantastic full body workout.
So are you in some ways mimicking the catch in your front crawl with the pole in and pushing that pole behind you? Is that kind of
You could
helpful?
actually, yeah, you could say that. Yes, it definitely helps.
There you are. Top tip, people. If you can't get to the pool, get yourself some poles and a pair of roller boots and knock your socks off.
Roller skis, yes.
Yeah. Turning 60, Lars, that's what we're looking at now. We're looking at a fine athlete of a man at 60, if you don't mind me saying so. And it's not a bit wonder with all the activities and the training and the events that you've done to date. Big plans ahead, is there?
Yeah, I turned 60 this year, and I've never liked those birthdays. I hated my 50th because I felt I'm getting old.
I know that
And
feeling.
turning 60, I'm getting older, and I didn't want to be celebrated. So I was trying to find a way to get away on my 60s.
Yeah.
And it turned out that there was a race in Scotland called Cape Wrath Ultra, which is a 400-kilometer trail run. And that coincided with me turning 60. So by signing up for Cape Wrath, I would both be able to do an epic event, but I would also be able to get away from celebration of my 60th birthday.
Yeah.
So I celebrated my 60th birthday this year by completing Cape Wrath Ultra.
What sort of an ultra race is Cape Wrath? Because the distance itself sounds quite shocking, but if it's anything that I've come to learn about these ultra events, they're never flat.
No. It's definitely not flat because, yes, first of all, it's 400 kilometers and it's in the Highlands in Scotland. So we had, I think, when you add it all up, there was about 13,000 meters of vertical gain on
Wow.
the on the course. So it's a race which is a little bit following the same format as Marathon des Sables, where it's broken down into daily stages, and the shortest stages were about 35 kilometers or so, and the latest stage, longer stages were about 65 kilometers. Very, very hilly, lots of bog, lots of mud, lots of vegetation, rocks you need to navigate. And a lot of the route is not marked at all, so there are no trails. So you're just really, running through wilderness. Totally incredible experience.
Sounds amazing. There's a thing that I wanted to ask you as well, Lars, just in relation to Ironman. Let's go back to Ironman, but there's one
Yes.
race in particular. You've already mentioned that you did Ironman in Copenhagen, but you've also done Challenge in Copenhagen. So you've actually completed the full distance triathlon in Copenhagen under two banners. So one was Ironman, one was Challenge. Any views or thoughts with regards to any differences between those two events, or were they quite similar? How did they sort of feel whenever you're thinking about them now?
I've always liked challenge events a lot because to me, challenge events have always been a little bit more down to earth, more family oriented, maybe less commercial, with the exception of Challenge Roth. Challenge Roth is like an Ironman, but most of the other challenge races are smaller, and you get more of a relaxed family feel about them. And that's also how I remember Challenge Copenhagen versus Ironman Copenhagen. So Challenge Copenhagen was put on, I think, a couple of times before Ironman acquired the race and made it a lot more commercial. Some people love the that Ironman, the brand, is so commercial. To me, I've got maybe a little bit of a love-hate relationship with that. I prefer something which is a little bit more, less commercial, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. In terms of the actual race, was it a very similar course, or was there any big changes made to it, or quite similar?
It was the same. It was the same course. So whatever you did on Challenge Copenhagen, the times would be comparable to what you would be doing at Ironman Copenhagen.
The other question
and that's
I have
also
for
where
you,
I've been breaking 5 hours on the bike course, which I've not been able to do at other events.
that's unreal. The other question that I was wanting to ask was Lanzarote. You've done Lanzarote 5 times. Were there 3 Lanzarotes in a row that you got near enough the same time?
Yes, that's right. So 3 years in a row, I finished the finish or crossed the finish line at 11:32, 11:30, and 11:32. So 3 consecutive years, but the races were very different. So one year it would be very windy. The other year it was actually fairly cold. So it wasn't until almost 1/3 through the bike that I could feel my feet because it was cold and it was wet. So yeah, the no Lanzarote race is the same.
It's certainly full of surprises. There's no real way to prepare for it. You just kind of do your training, turn up, and be prepared for whatever it throws at you.
Yes, and that's what I like about Lanzarote. I like you're sort of entering the unknown. You know it's going to be hilly. You know it's going to be windy. You know it's going to be warm. But how challenging that combination is going to be, you just don't know until you're there. And it surprises you every time.
One of the pieces of advice that you gave me was that if I could, I should have went out there and got out there a week ahead of the race to allow me an opportunity to acclimatise. Unfortunately, I didn't and wasn't able to do that just with getting time off work and bringing the family and whatnot. But the heat actually did get to me in the run, and I felt quite sick and nauseous. So that was a top tip. Is it something that you would do, generally speaking, Lars, whenever you're going to a big event? I mean, if you're looking towards Lanzarote again, you're thinking about getting out there good and early. What's your kind of pre-race routine?
With a race like Lanzarote, I would absolutely always go down there a week before, maybe 10 days before. So you've got enough time to acclimatize. When I'm there, I always want to then also have biked the full bike course at least once, maybe not in one go, certainly not in one go, but over 2 or 3 days. So, you get it back in your system, so to speak. Something I always also do at Lanzarote is that I don't allow myself to put air condition on in my car. You rent a car, but I switch aircon off because I want to make sure that I get as much out of the heat leading up to the event as possible. So that it helps you a lot, especially on the run, because the run through Puerto del Carmen is just grueling. Sort of 45 degrees in the sun, and it just that's where the wheels come off.
They certainly do. Top tips indeed. I'm going to have a recap of the events, Lars, that you've done, but I've been flicking through this timeline, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you've done 12 full distance triathlons with 5 times Lanzarote. You have done 11 half distance triathlons. 5 of those were Triathlon X events. 5 of them were Ironman events. One of them was the Silverman in Sweden. Multiple marathons, trail ultras, something like 11 trail ultras, 7 pilgrim challenges. So you've done that 106k pilgrim challenge 7 times. You've done the Cape Wrath 400k. That was on your 50th birthday. Well, 60th.
Yeah, that's right. 60th, yes. That was
yeah,
only,
and then
there was a
you
May
did
this year.
the Marathon des Sables. We haven't even talked about skiing, and we've mentioned it, but you've done skiing events. You've done a 90k skiing event. You've done that 5 times. You've done a couple at 56k. You've done roller ski events. Whew, I'm knackered just reading that. We don't really take much time out to reflect on what we've done. What does that feel like whenever you hear someone reading all that back to you?
Well, it might look like quite a bit on paper, but remember that it's been over 25 years approximately, because it wasn't until I turned 35 that I really started getting into some of these things. And it wasn't until I turned 40 that I did my first Ironman. So yeah, when I look back at what I've done, I'm proud of what I've done, but I've also been able to make each year definitely manageable. And there'll be years where I've been doing no events at all, where I've just needed to do something else. I've been, fishing for bluefin tuna, for example, on the oceans between Denmark, Norway, and Sweden, and participate in a bluefin tuna tagging project 3 years in a row
Cool.
in August. So I've been doing other things, but then I've built up this urge to go back and sign up again for something new. And the thing is that if I don't sign up for something, then I don't train. I need to have this goal, this thing in the calendar that I need to be ready for. That's what keeps me going.
I think it's a very honest answer, and it's a very modest answer as well, because I suppose whenever I look back on things that I've accomplished, but when I'm particularly speaking to someone like yourself, it's very inspirational for anybody listening or anybody feeling that maybe they can't do things or that they're not going to be able to do things. Whenever we can consider that you're never too old to give something a go, or you should never really allow yourself to be thinking that I'm getting too old for this shit, where, I'm speaking to a guy now who's 60, who's done that amazing ultra trail, a phenomenal trail. But any one of those events in isolation is another person's biggest event of their life. The fact that you've done so many of them, I think that's where there's something special.
Yeah, but I don't think I'm unique in that sense, because I know only very few people who do one Ironman and then they say, I'll never do another one. Once you've gotten started, then people are ready to do another one, and once you've done a few of those, then you want to maybe try to do something different, and that's what I've done. And again, then I try to find people who've done those things before that can help me get ready, that can coach me, so that I know what I'm getting into. And when it comes to this thing about age, at Cape Wrath Ultra, I had a coach with the name of Marcus Scotney prepare me for Cape Wrath. And he had won that event previously, and he turned 50 this year. And he won that event at the age of 50. And just seeing him out there attacking the course, and how fast and efficient he was, that was truly inspiring. And I'm trying to be inspiration myself to other people as well. So if people want to get started with triathlon, or they need advice or something, then I'm always there to help, the same way as other people have been helping me.
Fantastic. What does 2026 look like for you, Lars? I'm very excited and intrigued to find out what you've got in the calendar.
Yes, so again, I've been doing trail events and sort of extreme or unusual triathlons for a few years. And after having completed Cape Wrath, I thought to myself, I'm in great shape now. I want to put that shape to good use. And but I'd had enough trail running for some time, so I wanted to get back to a faster road-based or tarmac-based triathlon. And what I've done is I've signed up for Ironman Lanzarote again next year, so May next year. And my goal is to try to see if I can now qualify for Kona. And I think I've got a reasonable shot, because I don't think I've gotten a lot slower since I did the first Lanzarotes 10 and 15 years ago. So if I can deliver at more or less the same times at 60 or 61 as I could do when I was 45, then I think I've got a reasonable shot at qualifying.
Brilliant.
So also there I'm getting help from somebody, and I've signed up Oliver Harkin from Primed Coaching, that I think you know, because he did the 12 Ironmans for Christmas or something last year with you. So it was on your podcast and via YouTube that I came across Oliver, and I thought he sounds like a great guy. So let's have him help me out to get ready, and that's what we're doing at the moment.
That sounds like an unstoppable partnership. I wish you the very best luck. I would say that you're going to be very, very close to qualifying for Kona if you don't take the top spot, particularly in Lanzarote. and haven't done it so many times, because you are in some shape, let me tell you. What else following Lanzarote are we thinking about?
I'm considering maybe Ironman Wales as a backup if Lanzarote doesn't work out. But they would be the main events on the calendar for next year. I would still be doing Pilgrim's Challenge, so the 106k trail run the first weekend in February, and I've got some half distance triathlons that I'm looking at. But the goal next year is trying to qualify at Lanzarote.
What do you be doing with yourself at this time of year now, Lars? You've had a very fun-filled and exciting year, particularly the 400k trail run, which still blows my mind. What are you doing with yourself now over the winter in Denmark with regards to training? Do you go back to the skiing a bit, and then do you start focusing on the road elements sort of in the new year, or are we starting our program already for Lanzarote?
Oh, I've started it already, and one of the things that's a little bit difficult for me is that I live on a small island where putting together a bike course of 100 kilometers is really, really difficult because it is a tiny island. It's about 25 or 30 kilometers end to end. So it's a small island with 3,500 people. And we don't have a swimming pool either. So I'm only able to swim in open water. So I'm actually swimming now, even though it's only 4 degrees in the water. So I've got a thermal wetsuit. So I'm trying to do 2 or 3 open water swims every week still. A lot of my training is being done on a single speed bike because it just pushes me harder on the hills. And then I do a bit of indoor training on my bike as well, and of course I've got good running terrain out here. But my training has absolutely started, and I'm at about 10 to 12 hours a week at the moment, and we'll be ramping that up gradually. So building base and consistency, and then starting to look at building speed once we get into the spring of next year.
What's your thoughts on your nutrition with regards to the Lanzarote? You've got this goal of hopefully, fingers crossed, getting a qualifying spot for Kona. Are you going to go with depletion? Are you going to go with 90 grams an hour? Or are you going to go with a wee bit of a combination of both? Because you've been on both sides, but I'm just curious.
I'm probably going to lean towards increasing my carbohydrate intake. I don't think I'm going to get to 120 grams an hour, but maybe 90, something like that. I don't think trying to get back in depletion training for Lanzarote is the right thing to do. So at Lanzarote, I just want to make sure that I get all the carbohydrates I need, but not more than what I need. But I do know that my body is pretty energy efficient, so I can still easily go out and do 3 hours of challenging bikes on a couple of bottles and an energy bar. So I think I'll be doing all right, but I need to experiment a little bit more with nutrition and taking in more carbs than I've been doing in the past. So that's something I want to ramp up gradually. Again, working with Oliver on this.
You've certainly got a good base and a fantastic plan B to fall back on. If you're having any gastro issues or anything that you just don't feel it, or if it's too hot or you get a sickener, you have that comfort, I guess, to be able to think, well, I might not be able to eat for the next hour, but that's not going to be a problem because I'm built different.
The distance doesn't faze me because I've been there before.
Lars, it's been absolutely fascinating talking to you. I'm delighted that we have met online. Absolutely buzzing that we've had this discussion. It's great to see you in the flesh and be able to speak to you. I'm so looking forward to watching your journey and following you on Strava and on Facebook, and we'll certainly keep in touch. If anybody else wants to follow your journey, what's the best way that they can do that?
I think the best way to find me is probably on Facebook. So Lars Ronning on Facebook is where people can find me. I am on Instagram, but I'm only lurking, so I'm not posting anything on Instagram, but I'm there, so people can find me, but I'm there. But yeah, I would say Facebook is probably the best place to find me. They can of course find me on Strava as well, because pretty much anything that I'm doing training-wise, I'm sharing on Strava. So I'm a little bit like, if it's not on Strava, it didn't happen.
Yeah, I'll put the links for your socials in the description of the podcast. And the last thing that remains to be said, Lars, is have a very happy Christmas. Look after yourself, and we look forward to seeing big results from a great guy in 2026.
Thank you so much, Mickey, and it's been a real pleasure. And if it doesn't happen next year, it'll happen one of the following years. So I know that I'm going to make it to Kona somehow, someday.